People always say being adopted means someone chose you. In my case, it felt more like my adoptive parents had accidentally clicked the wrong box on a government form 20 years ago and spent the rest of their lives regretting it. Don't get me wrong. They fed me, clothed me, and occasionally remembered my birthday. But there was always a difference between how they treated me and how they treated their biological son. If I got an award, they asked why it wasn't a bigger award. If he got an award for participation, they organized a family celebration. When I graduated near the top of my university class, my adoptive father spent the entire dinner talking about how his son once bowled 3 strikes in a row. The man was 30 years old at the time. I learned long ago that arguing was pointless. Every conversation somehow ended with me being the disappointment, and my brother being the future of civilization. Fortunately, life had finally given me something worth smiling about. Her. I met her 3 years earlier during a trade conference between Earth and several neighboring star systems. She wasn't human. She came from a world famous for producing diplomats, scientists, and apparently professional-level smartass. She had silver eyes, a brilliant smile, and a talent for making fun of humans that should probably have been illegal. The first thing she ever said to me was, "Why does your species attend networking events if everyone clearly hates being here?" I laughed so hard that I nearly spilled my drink. We'd been inseparable ever since. She became my best friend, my partner, and the one person who could always make me laugh when my family was being impossible. Which was often. A week before everything changed, news arrived that my grandfather had passed away. Technically, he wasn't my biological grandfather. He was my adoptive grandfather, but unlike the rest of the family, he had always treated me like I belonged. He listened. He encouraged me. He remembered details about my life. That alone made him a rare treasure in our family. He had built a massive business empire across multiple star systems, and accumulated a fortune large enough to make accountants cry tears of joy. Naturally, the moment he passed away, every member of the family suddenly transformed into a professional inheritance expert. My adoptive mother started talking nonstop about family legacy. My adoptive father repeatedly mentioned fair distribution. My brother somehow began referring to himself as the obvious successor. The greed was so obvious it could have powered a small moon. Then something even stranger happened. They started being nice to me. Dangerously nice. Terrifyingly nice. My mother asked how my day was. My father complimented my work ethic. My brother offered to buy me lunch. I spent the entire week wondering if they had been replaced by aliens. When I mentioned this to my girlfriend, she nearly choked laughing. "On my world," she said, "when people suddenly become that friendly, it means they're either planning a wedding or a crime. Which one do you think this is?" She thought for a moment. "Definitely crime." I couldn't even argue. The official reading was scheduled for the following morning. That evening I was heading outside when I noticed movement near my car. 2 shadows quickly slipped away into the darkness. At first I assumed I was imagining things. Then I looked closer. Someone had clearly been messing with my vehicle. And judging by the timing, I had a very bad feeling about what I was about to discover. The moment my family disappeared inside the house, I walked over to my car and crouched beside the front wheel. I wasn't a mechanic, but even I could tell something was wrong. A few minutes later my girlfriend arrived carrying a flashlight and a cup of coffee. She looked under the vehicle for about 10 seconds before letting out a whistle. "Well," she said. "Good news. There is good news. They were stupid enough to leave fingerprints." I blinked. "What about the bad news?" She pointed toward the damaged brake line. "Your family apparently believes murder is a reasonable estate planning strategy." I stared at the cut line for several seconds. Then I started laughing. Hard. My girlfriend looked concerned. "Should I be worried about this reaction?" "No," I said between laughs. "I'm just imagining how confident they must be right now." That made her grin. Within minutes we pulled footage from the security cameras covering the driveway. The video quality was excellent. Almost too excellent. There was my adoptive father sneaking toward the car while wearing gardening gloves. There was my adoptive mother holding a flashlight. And there was my brother standing nearby recording everything because apparently criminal activity wasn't complete without making a souvenir video. The three of them looked less like master criminals and more like people competing in a reality show called Idiots After Dark. My girlfriend watched the footage twice. Humans are fascinating. Why? Because your family committed a crime and somehow managed to create evidence from 3 different angles. I couldn't argue with that. The will reading was scheduled for the next morning. I considered calling the authorities. I considered confronting them. Then a much funnier idea appeared. What if they think their plan worked? Her silver eyes immediately lit up. Oh, now we're talking. The next morning I sent a message to the family group chat. Bad news. Car won't start. Looks like I won't make it to the reading. The response arrived almost instantly. My adoptive mother sent a message pretending to be sympathetic. My adoptive father wrote that family was more important than money. That nearly made me choke on my coffee. Then my brother sent a private message. Guess Grandpa's fortune wasn't meant for everyone. I stared at the text and laughed so hard that my girlfriend had to take my phone away. Meanwhile, our actual transportation was waiting outside. A limousine. Not a normal limousine. An absurdly long luxury limousine that looked like it could transport a small government. My girlfriend stepped outside and froze. You rented that? Maybe. It has its own bar. Possibly. It has a hot tub. I got a discount. She laughed so hard she nearly fell over. You are the pettiest human I've ever met. Thank you. I meant that as a compliment. The drive to the lawyer's office was glorious. While my family was probably celebrating my absence, we arrived nearly 2 hours early. The lawyer had already been informed about the sabotage evidence, and quietly arranged a private entrance. As we entered the building, my phone continued receiving messages. My brother was apparently so excited he couldn't stop talking. He was already discussing future purchases. A penthouse. A sports shuttle. A vacation property on a luxury moon resort. The inheritance hadn't even been distributed yet. He was spending money that technically belonged to someone else. My girlfriend read one of the messages and burst out laughing. Do all rich idiots share the same brain? Apparently. We settled into a private waiting room overlooking the main conference hall. From there we could watch guests arriving. An hour later my adoptive parents finally appeared. The 3 of them looked happier than I had ever seen them. They were smiling, laughing, celebrating. My brother even attempted a victory dance in the hallway. It was one of the most embarrassing things I had ever witnessed. They genuinely believed they had won. None of them had the slightest idea that I was already inside the building. And in less than an hour, they were about to discover just how badly they had miscalculated. The conference room looked exactly like every expensive legal office in the galaxy. Polished tables. Fancy lighting. Uncomfortable chairs designed by people who clearly hated spines. My adoptive parents sat near the front wearing expressions that practically screamed future millionaires. My brother looked even worse. The man was grinning so hard I was genuinely worried his face might become stuck that way. The lawyer entered precisely on schedule and greeted everyone. A few minutes later the official proceedings began. The room settled into silence. My adoptive father folded his hands confidently. My mother smiled politely. My brother was already checking luxury property listings on his tablet. Then the lawyer cleared his throat. Before we begin, one final beneficiary has arrived. 3 heads turned toward the doorway. The expressions on their faces were worth every second of planning. My mother's smile vanished first. My father's jaw dropped. My brother looked like someone had unplugged his brain. I walked into the room beside my girlfriend and calmly took a seat. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. For several glorious seconds the room resembled a paused video. Finally my brother pointed at me. You're here. I nodded. Excellent observation. My girlfriend immediately buried her face in her hands to hide her laughter. The lawyer continued as if nothing unusual had happened. Meanwhile, my family looked as though reality itself had betrayed them. My adoptive mother attempted recovery. "Oh, sweetheart, we're just happy you made it." I almost admired the performance. Almost. The lawyer opened the official documents. "Your grandfather left very specific instructions regarding the distribution of his estate." That sentence instantly grabbed everyone's attention. The room became silent again. The lawyer activated a large display screen mounted on the wall. A recorded message appeared. My grandfather's face filled the room. Even after his death, his presence carried authority. He smiled. "If you're watching this, then I finally escaped another family dinner." Several people laughed, including me. My grandfather continued. "Over the years, I've carefully observed every member of this family." That was when the smiles around the room began fading, especially on my adoptive parents. "I've seen generosity. I've seen loyalty. I've also seen greed, manipulation, and enough bad behavior to fill several legal databases." My brother shifted nervously. My girlfriend squeezed my hand beneath the table. Then came the real surprise. My grandfather revealed he had privately documented years of family interactions. Every insult. Every attempt to exclude me. Every instance of favoritism. The recordings were impossible to dispute. One by one they appeared on the screen. My adoptive parents looked increasingly uncomfortable. My brother looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him. The lawyer then revealed another video. Security footage. Fresh security footage. From the previous night. The room watched my adoptive father sneaking toward my car. My adoptive mother standing lookout. My brother filming the entire operation. The silence that followed was magnificent. I had never heard a room become that quiet. Even breathing seemed too loud. My brother suddenly stood up. "There has to be some explanation." The lawyer nodded. "There is." Hope appeared in my brother's eyes. Then the lawyer continued. "The explanation is that you're all terrible criminals." Half the room burst into laughter. My girlfriend nearly fell out of her chair. My adoptive father attempted to say something but produced only confused noises. The lawyer returned to the will. "Based on years of observation and recent events, your grandfather has chosen a single heir." Every person in the room stared forward. My brother looked ready to celebrate. Then the lawyer read my name. The reaction was immediate. My mother's eyes widened. My father turned pale. My brother looked physically injured. The lawyer calmly listed everything included in the inheritance. The business empire. The investment portfolios. The luxury properties. The private transport fleet. The entire estate. All of it. Mine. The room exploded into whispers. My girlfriend stared at me with disbelief. I squeezed her hand. She squeezed back. Across the table, my adoptive parents appeared moments away from collapsing. Then my mother suddenly leaned backward dramatically. My father followed a second later. Both attempted what was clearly a synchronized fainting performance. Unfortunately, nobody reacted. The acting was terrible. Several relatives simply stared. One person rolled their eyes. A distant cousin actually started recording them. My brother rushed over. "Mom! Dad!" My girlfriend leaned toward me and whispered, "Do they practice these things?" I couldn't answer. I was laughing too hard. And as the reality of their failure finally settled over them, I realized something. For the first time in my life, they had absolutely no control over what happened next. The meeting officially ended, but the entertainment was far from over. My adoptive parents recovered from their spectacularly unconvincing fainting performance and immediately switched to a completely different strategy. Begging. Apparently, humiliation had unlocked a brand new personality setting. My adoptive mother approached me first with tears in her eyes. Or what I assumed were tears. The woman had spent years performing dramatic emotional scenes. At this point, I wasn't entirely convinced she couldn't activate crying on command. "Honey," she said softly, "we're family. That sentence almost made me laugh again. For most of my life, I had only been family when it was convenient. Now that several million credits were involved, suddenly the definition had expanded. My adoptive father stepped forward. We made mistakes. My girlfriend raised an eyebrow. Mistakes? She asked. Her tone alone nearly ended the conversation. My father cleared his throat. Poor choices. My girlfriend nodded. Attempted brake sabotage sounds slightly worse than poor choices. I had never been more attracted to anyone in my life. Meanwhile, my brother stood nearby looking like someone had personally cancelled his future. No luxury penthouse. No sports shuttle. No moon resort. Just consequences. For once. The strange thing was that I didn't feel angry anymore. Years earlier, maybe. Not now. The truth was that they had already lost. Not because of the inheritance. Because they had spent decades destroying relationships that could never be replaced. No amount of money could fix that. I wished them well. Then I informed them they would receive exactly what my grandfather intended. Nothing more. Nothing less. The look on their faces was priceless. Over the following months, my life changed rapidly. The business empire required attention. Fortunately, my grandfather had surrounded himself with competent professionals instead of greedy relatives. That made management significantly easier. My girlfriend became my closest advisor. Her intelligence amazed me daily. Within weeks, she was identifying opportunities that entire executive teams had overlooked. Watching meetings became hilarious. Veteran executives would present complicated reports. She would glance at them for 30 seconds and immediately find 3 flaws. One executive actually asked if her species possessed telepathic abilities. She smiled. No. Humans just set the bar surprisingly low. The company recorded its most successful year in decades. New projects expanded across multiple star systems. Employees received better benefits. Communities received investments. And for the first time, I felt like I was building something meaningful. Meanwhile, my former family achieved a very different kind of success. Internet fame. Unfortunately for them, it wasn't the good kind. Someone had uploaded footage from the will reading. Specifically the fake fainting incident. Within days, the video spread across countless networks. Millions of viewers watched the synchronized collapse. Millions more laughed. Memes appeared everywhere. People added dramatic music, slow-motion edits, special effects. One version showed both of them falling while an exploding star appeared behind them. My girlfriend watched that one at least 20 times. She laughed every single time. Months later, we attended a charity event together. As we walked through the venue, she squeezed my hand. I looked at her and realized something. Throughout every challenge, every family disaster, every ridiculous moment, she had remained beside me. Not because of money. Not because of status. Because she genuinely cared. So I decided to stop waiting. In the middle of the evening, I got down on one knee. Her silver eyes widened. For the first time since I had met her, she seemed completely speechless. That alone made the moment unforgettable. When I asked her to marry me, her answer arrived instantly. Yes. The crowd erupted into applause. She wrapped her arms around me and kissed me while cameras flashed around us. For once, the attention felt deserved. Later that night, we rode home together beneath a sky full of stars. My phone buzzed with another notification. Someone had launched a merchandise store dedicated entirely to the famous will reading collapse. T-shirts, coffee mugs, posters, even collectible figurines. My girlfriend laughed so hard she nearly dropped her tablet. I leaned back and smiled. The people who spent years trying to make me feel unwanted had become a joke remembered across half the galaxy. And the best revenge wasn't the fortune. It wasn't the inheritance. It wasn't even the public humiliation. It was building a happy life with someone I loved while they watched from the sidelines, knowing they had thrown away everything that truly mattered. For the first time in my life, the future looked brighter than the stars themselves.